this is. So what this is going to be an expression sheet. So comic artists and animators, what we often do when we create characters is, because remember the emphasis in animation or the emphasis in this case comic stories, are the characters themselves and the expressions that they make. That's what's going to be important, and it's readable across the different comics I'll be making. So the character I'm going to be making today in this set of boxes is Kunani. And so we were introduced to him previously. So I've already done one expression set for Iara, and so that's what this is. So this is the expression set for her, and I'm going to be sharing a color version of this on Ko-fi very soon. So if you are uh, donating to my Ko-fi page, then you get access to the folks that already donated. You got to see this in full before I shared it on stream. And so that's the way it's going to be for Ko-fi. So every week, hopefully, I'm going to be updating with new art and new updates to my comic and things like that. So if you want to not miss out and you don't want to wait till the Twitch stream airs live, you can always donate and then get advance images of what I'll be sharing on the stream, or maybe something new that I'm not going to share on the stream, which I've been doing as well. So there you go. But anyway, so these are some illustrations of Iara, who's the main character of Yara's Ascendance. And I'm going to draw, in essence, her counterpart, I suppose, Kunani in this. So this sequence is going to have different expressions that he's going to be making on his face. So he's going to be happy, sad, pleased, angry, etc., as we go down the line. So at first, the illustration is not going to show up that well because I'm going to be sketching with pencil. So it's not going to be like all that clear at first. That's why I want to bring it up before I draw. Just so if you're catching this now or if you're watching this later, you're like, what are they doing? That's what I'm doing. So I'm going to be drawing some faces in here in these boxes. I'm going to be inking them in, and then I may talk a bit more about this character too. So if you have missed out on previous streams in the past, who the heck is Kunani? So Kunani is Yara's friend, let's put it that way, queer platonic friend in Yara's Ascendance. Whether or not that will stay is something that will be determined as the comic series goes on. Now, the comic that I'm making is I'm planning out 3 issues. They're going to be roughly 30 pages each. They are going to be full color, and I am going to make alternative covers and things like that for the Kickstarter and stuff like that too. So if you're on my Ko-fi page, you get to see that all before it gets released to the public, hopefully before or by 2027. But here is some work in progress doodles. So this is what a profile view of Kunani looks like in case you missed previous streams. Here's a sketch of him. And here's him and Iara having a bit of a spat. They're fighting with each other here. So I do have conceptual stuff that's going that may or may not be part of the script. But it's just to give you a sense of, who the heck are these characters? Who are they talking about? And on stream last time, I made this drawing, right? And this is the 3 characters. Well, the 2 main characters and then one of the side characters in Iara's Ascendance. So Iara is here, and then here's Kunani here, and he's trying to hit on her, and Iara is completely confused, and Bill is like trying to encourage this behavior. So whether or not this is going to end well, you'll find out in the comic. Will this become a page in the comic? I'm not entirely sure at this point. It may or may not. This may just be something silly that I drew on stream last week. So in case you missed it, this is what I drew for the first half of the stream last time. So this time around, I'll be doing expression sheet. So just to clarify what I'll be doing in the next, roughly 30, 45 minutes. So it's going to be fun, and I hope that you enjoy it. one of the protagonists in Iara's Ascendance, my comic book that I'm going to be publishing by 2027, hopefully, and yet. So he is my raptor dinosaur, and one of them, and he is normally colored like the ocean or maybe like a budgie. So he's got some beautiful green and blue gradients to him. My dinosaur character is too. So Kunani in this first corner is very happy. Now, a lot of his happy expressions are very similar. And I loosely based this character off of, if I didn't mention it tonight, I mentioned it, I think, last week or in previous streams, where this character is loosely based off of the young Keanu Reeves characters, Johnny Utah and Ted Theodore Logan, like kind of merged together, and almost a little bit of Bodhi from Point Break as well. Like, um, so, uh, sad, and I fed her before the stream started. FYI, I said, "Don't worry, she has lots of food. She's well cared for." So is this character. Anyway, well, to a point. You got to torture your darlings in your stories, and unfortunately, my dinosaurs are no exception. So this is a very sad, typical pose for him. So you'll notice a lot of his facial expressions if we compare the two pages. So these are completed expression pages. So Iara's expression pages, I try to draw my dinosaur characters here as very expressive, even though they're dinosaurs. Like I try to give them that. I guess you could reference it as Disney. I don't. I think more of I draw more on like Don Bluth and other early '90s animators and stuff. Like some Glen Keane, maybe like a few that I've James Baxter. Those character artists. I really reference their work subconsciously when I make my characters. I love to have expression in my dinosaur characters, so they're not just like realistic flat, like you know. Um, no shade to, well, okay, all the shade to corporate overlords, but that are not my corporate overlords, at least as of this recording. Um, but I'm gonna say that I personally don't really like the new live action characters because they don't have that expressivity. They don't show the emotional connection to the reader that I feel is so needed in a lot of comics and stories. And dinosaurs, unfortunately, in the past few years, have gotten like the monster movie treatment or whatever, movie monster treatment, where they're like more like some alien creature that's really removed from us. And like in my stories and in my comic, the reason why I went back to a comic format with my dinosaur story is because I wanted to show the emotion the characters and draw the reader in and show that you can have dinosaurs that are kind of silly and expressive, and it's fun. I like the way to draw these things. And so this character sheet is Iara, so this is her expression sheet, and then this is Kunani and his expression sheet. So you notice that with Iara, hers is definitely more muted in her expression. She doesn't have as big of a dramatic expression range as Kunyani does. So he's definitely more of the ham. He's definitely more. He's the ham and cheese. He's definitely more of that dramatic, overly over the top uh, kind of character. And yet, at the same time, it's funny because he is not confident. So, I want to describe these characters a little bit to you in this stream before I jump into the gameplay portion and all that fun stuff. Before I play Sonic. Because, I want to bring up some things here. So, this is, again, ERS page, so just to differentiate. So, this is ERS page here, and there's no, so the other thing is, when I do the final comic, it's going to be in color, so that will definitely help to distinguish our characters between each other, because my dinosaur characters are raptor dinosaurs. They unfortunately do suffer from a bit of same face syndrome. They do look very similar in their facial expressions and stuff. Now Iara actually has a little bit of a dip down in her muzzle, whereas Kunani is more straight out. He tends to have a thicker face as well because he's a more masculine character. So he has that heavier jaw set. He's actually a chonkier dude than Bill is going to be. So he's actually a tall, chonky dude. Like that's his build. And so he's a very different, and that's again different than Yara. Yara is definitely smaller. And not necessarily dainty, but definitely like that more effeminate lean towards her facial features and things like that. So I chose to do her as more of like a muted expression as well. Like she tends to be, she does have, so her strengths are like actually in that kind of like flirty kind of expression, really more of a neutral expression across the board. She still emotes, she still expresses, but it's nowhere near as big of an expression as we have with Kunani. So even though they're both introverted type characters, he is definitely the more outward expressing of the two in that way, which is interesting. And especially when it comes to things like sadness or anger in Kunani. And that lends itself to his character overall. So where Iara, hers, so she, as a result of this, she tends to hold her feelings in. So Iara tends to bottle things in. And that includes, when she holds things in, that includes things like anger and fear. And for Iara, her driving force towards activating her ammonite talisman that she wears is fear. So fear is what drives her in the negative sense. What Kunyani, what drives him is anger. And he's way more expressive with that, especially among many of these boxes, than what Yara was. So he struggles a lot more with anger and containing that expression versus Yara, who is trapped in fear expression. And so these, you know, points are going to be brought out in Yara's Ascendance, and this will help to work on their characters as they grow together, as they learn from each other. They're going to learn how to harness their powers, both external and internal, when it comes to their magical abilities and things like that. Kunyani here, he is discussing something, I don't know what, but I chose like some different uh, profile versus straight on view. Dinosaurs are difficult to draw and difficult to show in like this view here. And I love having figures when I draw, just like old school animators, just like comic artists. It's so helpful to have a reference figure like this, to get a sense of three-dimensional space, and especially for someone like me that struggles with spatial reasoning, because hello, neurodivergence. Having this really helps as a guide to understand. Now, one day I will get another Beast of Mesozoic and paint it like Konani, but I don't have the funds. But if you want to help me in this endeavor and you want to give me some funds to get, if you want to surprise me and get me a dinosaur, if you don't, that's cool too. But I'm just throwing it out there, just manifesting, if you want to. Anyway, like I was saying though, it's a good reference point. So there is an excellent reference point, and this little dinosaur character is a good thing to have out when I'm drawing, because it gives me a sense of, okay, this is what we're working with here. And as I said, it's so weird. Dinosaurs look funny from the front. They look silly from the front, and so when I do the confused face, or when I do less serious poses, or in Konani's case, actually very serious pose. But in most dinosaurs, like when you see them front on, it's hilarious. Like, and same thing is true for birds too. Like certain birds, emus, ostriches. If you look at those birds in the face, they look absolutely goofy. Straight on. Whereas if they're from the profile, you take them more seriously. And so I want to kind of play with that here, where Kunyani here is actually serious when he looks right at you. And I kind of was pulling a little bit from, like, I think John Wick is what I was channeling here when I was drawing him in this. A little bit of Berserker too, because he's got some of that anger. He's got definite anger issues, and that comes out in issue 1 and continues on through the series. Um, Drunk. Do these dinosaurs actually get drunk? Sort of. So there are certain things that creatures can get into that will potentially make them sick. Um, Really, the only sick that Kunani gets is the typical guy sick, which is, oh no, I have the sniffles, I'm sick. I'm dying. It's like, you got a runny nose, you have a head cold. No, I'm dying. Like that's basically it. He's very much like dramatic, like, I'm on my last legs, and it's like he's got a runny nose and he's got sinus congestion. No, he does turn into a dolphin, so Some folks fear dolphins now, so maybe that is scary enough for you. Maybe that is what'll work for you. I don't know. Um, but I want to reassure my viewers that there is no explicit content in terms of that. In terms of sexual content, no. My story is very much, in that way it's clear for slightly younger readers, but I would advise teen and up audiences is what I'm aiming for with my comic and with my stories. So ER is crossing the same way, right? So by the way, this is the dinosaur character Kunani and my dinosaur character Iara are featured in ER's Ascendance, which is the sequel to ER's Crossing, the novel right here. So this is my novel that I published a few years ago, in case you missed the first part of the stream tonight. Um, and so this comic that I'm drawing characters out of, that's the sequel to this. So just to clarify there as well. All right, so that was fun. I get to talk a little about some of that, reveal some of the behind the scenes there. And so again, these are expression sheets, and like I said, this is, it's fun to practice this, and it's good to know that, and to let you all know that this is a key thing to work on when you're making comics or when you're doing, if you're into that kind of stuff and you like making art and you want to do, animation, or you want to do cartooning, or you want to do comics. Just as a heads up, this is a good practice thing to do. Is you make a series of blocks like this, you give your creatures emotes, or people if you're drawing human beings or anything in between. You give them, different emotions, and then you draw according to how they feel, so that they don't suffer from what's unfortunately been termed same face syndrome, which is basically where not only do characters look the same across like different types, but they have like similar facial expressions. Now notice that Yara's serious face looks kind of similar to Kanyani's, but his is definitely more like like the floofy hair, right? So I did my best to incorporate some slightly different um, styles of their feathers, not hair, feathers. Well, it looks like hair, and that's on purpose, but it's porpoise anyway. They have different head crests. They have different feathers. The color schemes are going to be different as well, right? And so the reactions to each of these, feelings is different too. And so that's something where, it's fun. It's fun to play with these characters and to develop this world. And I hope that you're enjoying watching me in this process.